The Battle of Arginusae was one of those moments in history where a huge victory somehow turned into a disaster. See, imagine these Athenian generals who managed to win the battle, but immediately after were put on trial and many were executed. Yeah, not great. Let's talk about that. So in 406 BC, Athens was fighting Sparta in the Peloponnesian War. And things were getting desperate. The Spartans had a fleet near the islands of Arginusae, blocking a key Athenian position. Athens pulled together a massive emergency fleet, recruiting slaves and training them to row. And then, well, a stunning victory over the Spartans. The Athenians sank or captured over 70 Spartan ships, and the Spartan commander, Callicratidas, was killed. For a brief moment, it looked like Athens had turned the tide of war, until everything went horribly wrong. See, here's the problem. After the battle, there were hundreds of Athenian soldiers stranded in the water, clinging to bits of wreckage. The plan was for some generals to rescue them while others handled the captured ships. Unfortunately, a sudden violent storm swept in. The weather made it nearly impossible to sail back and save the survivors. In the end, many of those sailors drowned. It was a horrible tragedy, but not exactly the general's fault. Still, imagine trying to explain that to the grieving families in Athens. It did not go well. So when the news hit Athens, people weren't just sad, they were quite angry. These weren't random sailors, many were friends, brothers, sons of the citizens in Athens. And so the mood quickly shifted from "we won" to who's responsible for not saving those sailors. And see, in the middle of this, a group of politicians started pointing their fingers at the generals. They claimed that the rescue could have been done and that the generals were either negligent or just didn't care. The trial that followed this was a roller coaster. So once 6 out of the 8 generals came back, the generals pleaded that it was not their fault, but rather the storm that had prevented their rescue of the friends and families of Athens. And well, that kinda worked, at least for the day, but then a festival, a Apaturia, in which one of its traditions is to celebrate it with your family. And yeah, seeing as a lot of civilians lost family members, it once again reminded them of the general's supposed errors, which would later affect the court's decision for them. See, a politician named Calixenus saw this and said that the generals should all be tried as a group for their actions, regardless of if they had a say on the drowned sailors or not. And this was something that at the time was unconstitutional, but due to the public pressure and other reasons, it was allowed. Historian Donald Kagan, in his book The Peloponnesian War, describes the scene as a triumph of passion over law, a moment when the needs of justice were drowned out by the cries for vengeance. In the end, 6 of the 8 generals were found guilty and executed. It was one of the most shocking examples in history of a military success immediately followed by political self-sabotage. The Athenians would later regret this decision and request that the politician who instigated the trial be brought to justice, but sadly many of those escaped before facing justice. And just like that, Athens had managed to turn a victory into a disaster. The city just lost experienced commanders that had just won them an important battle in an instant, due to the frenzy of not just the civilians losing many family members, but the politicians needing someone to blame for the loss of lives. And so, if you enjoyed this story, then leave a like, comment, subscribe for more short and long stories about ancient history.